UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Transporter Chief, beam our listeners aboard. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts Network. I'm Commander Pierre Laraco, coming to you from sunny Risa today. With me today, we have the holder of the Sacred Chalice of Ritz, Amy Nelson, and the first clerk of the FCA, Kevin Scharf. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello. Feels like it's been forever since I've done this.
Oh, so we're back, which is wonderful. We do not have any listener feedback. And we are going to dive into a topic that we haven't really dived into before as podcasters. And we're really excited to be able to branch out and get to do some unique things. So today, listeners, we are going to be talking about Star Trek Divided We Fall comic series, which was a 4-part miniseries back in 2001. And we are going to discuss it. So I guess I should start with, there might be spoilers here. So if you haven't read it, you might want to stop, read it, and come back.
Yes, definitely. Now, I am not familiar with reading comics at all. So I'm just going to share my story with you guys.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask, when did you first start reading comics?
The year was 1978.
Oh my gosh.
I was a small boy of 7 years old, and there was always a stack of comics around. I was a huge comic collector from about the age of 13. I used to pick them up at the variety store where we rented movies back in the day when you had to go to a store to rent movies. And I was mostly a DC Comics kid, but I did read Star Trek comics as a kid after I became a fan. I have a run of the original Next Generation miniseries, the 6 issues that came out in when the show first appeared. So I have a very long history with comics, and I still love me some comics to this very day. But this miniseries was one that I was sort of out of the comics game in 2001, so this one passed me by, and so this series is all new to me.
And I don't ever remember a life without comics, to be honest with you. So I was like 12 when the death of Superman happened, so I remember reading all those comics up to that, and then after that, and yeah, just kind of always around comics. Never really Star Trek comics when I was little, but I'm catching up now.
Well, then you guys definitely are the experts, and I am the newbie here. So the first time I read a comic book was when the Mirror universe for TNG came out, and on Literary Treks over on Trek FM, they asked me to come on. And I think the first Mirror episode for TNG was one of those freebie comic book days. You know how they have?
It was a free comic book day giveaway, yes.
And so I went and picked it up and then went on to Literary Treks, and I was scared to death because I didn't know how to read them. So I took the comic book into my classroom and I said, all right, kids, who knows how to read a comic book? And I had like 5 kids come on up, and they pointed out how to read a comic book to me. So reading, you start top to bottom and left to right, and you have to look at the pictures as well as the words. So very different than reading a book. And the shape of the outline, also, you have to understand what that is too. Like the square ones are usually like what you the narration voice, like the square ones, or if there's the bubble with the, going to the person who's speaking, and you have to read those in order top to bottom. You just can't follow one person saying, you have to go back and forth as if it's a dialogue. And then you also have to read, in the like bam, wham, that they have in that.
Yeah.
So you get the sound effects. And my kids were so cute explaining this to me. I felt sort of silly, but my students really helped me learn how to read a comic book. And so that's my story.
Your classroom seems like so much fun, Miss Amy Nelson.
Well, I made sure to do this after I gave my lesson. So listeners, we did math first. But so, yeah, my kids were really cute and I appreciate them. And so I have that memory that teaches me.
I guess because I've grown up with comics and I've had them around since I was a little kid, it was just always sort of, you just sort of learn by osmosis. And when you're young, you just sort of look at the pictures and then you learn how to follow the story. And those sort of devices that you mentioned just become second nature. But if you're jumping in and have never read a comic and you start as an adult, there are a lot of tropes that it never dawned on me would be a barrier to entry for people.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so I was glad to have the little tutorial.
So, Pierre, I don't think we should jump her over to Japanese manga where you have to read left to right and you start at the back of the book.
Oh, dear.
Yes, when you get English translations of Japanese comics and you open the cover, it'll say, "This is the end. Flip the book over and from the other way."
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, so there is this whole subculture of reading comics that I am learning. Yeah.
So, I guess we will jump into issue 1.
Yes.
Issue 1's title is Crossfire. We should start out by letting our listeners know that this is a comic book written by John Ordover and David Mack. It is a Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine crossover. It takes place after the events of What We Left Behind. No.
Mm-hmm.
The DS9 finale.
I get the DS, I always get confused with that and then the documentary. I'm like, those names are too close together. So it takes...
And I'm guessing that it takes place after Insurrection, but I'm just guessing here for TNG timeline.
I believe so.
So,
because it seemed like that Troy and Riker were together but not married.
Yes.
And they were still on the Enterprise.
Yes.
But it looked like Enterprise D.
No, it's the E.
No, they're on the E.
Oh, it's the E. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
so I put it in my mind after Insurrection.
There are a couple of interesting things about the creators, Ordover and Mack. John Ordover and David Mack were... Well, David Mack still is a writer of Star Trek novels. He's a Star Trek novelist. John Ordover actually was the editor of the Star Trek novel line then. He was the editor of Pocketbooks from 1992 to 2003. And because we have that pedigree of these two writers, this comic falls in line with the continuity of this at the time. So when we say it's a DS9 crossover, it is, but it's a post-DS9 reboot crossover. So you won't see Cisco, and you won't see some of those other sort of major DS9. Odo, you won't see Odo in this book either. And you might be scratching your head when we go to the bridge and see Ro Laren, because in the novels, she shows up and ends up becoming captain of DS9 at one point. At this point, I don't believe she is, because Kira is still around. In the novels, Kira leaves the station as well. So, and then there's characters like Commander Vaughn and Lieutenant Shran, who people who've only watched the TV show won't be familiar with, but are major characters in the DS9 relaunch books.
Yeah, there were some characters in there that I just had no idea who they were. So that explains a little bit, yes.
Yeah, there really is again, I'm going to use the phrase barrier to entry with this book. If you aren't familiar with that exact period of Star Trek publishing, you're going to be a little bit lost with this comic.
Yeah, so like I said, the only comics that I've read previously were the Mirror Universe, and that was illustrated by J.K. Woodward, and I absolutely love his artwork. I actually met him on the Star Trek cruise and at STLV last year and have become pretty good friends with him. And I've absolutely, like I said, just love his art. And I feel like his characters, like I recognize them instantly. And just in comparison and just my personal opinion, like, so we have Andrew Curry as the penciler and WildStorm FX, I guess, are the colorists. I sometimes had a hard time recognizing the characters, and we all know my love for Deanna, and I saw her, in the conference room, and I'm like, is that supposed to be Deanna? Because I didn't know. And it's like the only way I knew Beverly was that she had red hair. So the characters to me weren't as recognizable. How did you guys feel?
I agree. So one of the first panels, Riker has the bridge, and one of the ensigns says something to him, and he just calls him Commander, and at first I was like, there's a new commander on the Enterprise. And I was like, oh, this must be after Nemesis or something. But no, that's just supposed to be Riker.
Yeah, Riker was one of the characters that I had a tough time recognizing. Some characters I felt were more on model, like Ezri, and we don't see Data very often, but when he shows up, he looked like Data. Kira, but...
Yeah, Kira was really good. I recognized her, and I recognized Ro, in part because of the outfit she was wearing. But the first time we saw Ezri, laying in bed, I was like, who is this? I mean, I noticed it was a Trill, but then later in the issues, she was very recognizable. So I think maybe I just got used to how she was being drawn. And I think that's sort of how it goes, and so like when you get a comic, if you're not familiar with the illustrator, it just takes some time to get used to, okay, this is how they're drawing this character.
Especially when they're drawing characters who have real life counterparts. It's not as big a deal if you're drawing Superman because I'm not going to say generic, but he's a character who lots of actors have played, and there's no one look for Superman. But Deanna Troi, there's only one Deanna Troi, and she needs to look like Deanna Troi. So unless you're really good at capturing the likenesses of actors, it's a tougher call, I think, to draw a licensed comic than a regular superhero book.
And one thing that I really, as we go into, discussing Crossfire, they did bring back some names, and I was real grateful to have just finished my DS9 rewatch. And so when we see Lenara, where she's held captive, being taken hostage, I was like, oh yes, I remember Lenara and Jadzia. And I think they do a really good job in the writing of, having Ezri remember the feelings of Jadzia and sort of put a timeline. Because it was really awesome when the one frame was like, I haven't felt this way about Lenara since before Jadzia married Worf, so it sort of gives you that timeline. And same when they introduced Odan and Beverly's feeling for Odan and sort of how that was connected with Will. And so they do a good job, I feel, in these characters that have been so long ago compared to where we are in the timeline to refresh our memories. And I was very grateful for that.
And I want to just point out, too, that they have redesigned Odan, too. Like on TNG, he didn't have the trill spots. He had those big arched eyebrows. And so when they do draw Odan, in the comic, both his original host, the host that took over after. They've got rid of those cheesy looking eyebrows and just switched to the trill spots, which I think is a good idea. The trill spot design is a much better one than the one they had originally on Next Gen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the arc work is a little clunky at times throughout, but yeah, I like that they kept that consistency with the trill, because they really found their groove with the trill from the first episode after that, and I really enjoy the rich kind of culture that we learn about the trill, and they really dive into the trill and who the trill are and kind of what they're about, which is really, really neat and really really fun. I do like the fact that they told a story instead of being like, we're just gonna have these two, Star Trek: The Next Generation and DS9 meet, and then like we'll do some fan service and have some moments where different characters that you didn't actually get to see meet. Instead of that, they actually told a story and had just a good story about it. Had the kidnapping and the introducing of a virus into a community, which is something that we all know too well right now. And so there's an actual story behind it, but it's also great that they brought back some characters that we already knew, and we get to see them kind of develop in things.
To your point, I absolutely agree, because sometimes it feels like the Trill story in TNG with Beverly and Odan is so different than how they develop the Trill Society in Deep Space Nine, with the pool and the hosts. And it seemed like this comic series really blended them well together. It felt like Odan was, excuse me. It felt like Odan was really a part of the Trill and not so disjointed that I think we get in the series. So I like that blending.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Now, if somebody came to me and said, I want you to write a DS9 TNG crossover, I don't know if the Trill is where my mind would go for the story. I think the story works. I think it's a good story, but kind of surprising that the Trill was therein, especially when you've already got a crossover character like Worf and O'Brien, two characters that you could bridge, but instead they chose to go with the Trill. And I find that kind of interesting. I wonder if that, again, has something to do with the fact that this is part of the novel's continuity, and there were things happening with other characters that they couldn't use, and so they just found a way to fit this story into their continuity. But yeah, not a choice I would have made, but an interesting choice nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because we do have David Mack, who is, a very prolific author, writing this as well. So he's fitting it in, and I think it's a great connection, and I think unique, but my understanding of what unique is very limited, as this is only my second series that I've read.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I like the fact that they take some characters that we like and know, or maybe not like, because I'm going to put Ro Laren in there too. But like, we have Ro Laren, we have Ezri. I like that entrance into it, kind of, where they have those two are kind of together. But that's even like pre-comic book, right? So it's almost like the crossover begins before the comic book does. And then I think they bring it, there's a natural way of why Enterprise is involved. It doesn't feel forced. They're responding to a distress signal. It doesn't feel like it's forced upon it.
Yeah, so let's tell our listeners
we probably should do
what
that.
the story is for this issue, now that we've danced all around it.
Who would like to talk about that? Who would like to take the lead?
Well, I will on this one, and you guys can do the others, because you know why. So this we have, and it's again going back and forth with the Deep Space Nine crew, and Lenara is taken hostage, and there's a ransom given encrypted, and so Kira and Ro know about it, and they send Ezri to go and save her. Now on the TNG side, we have Odan, and poor Odan just can't keep a host body. Needs, that was my first thing when I read that. I was like, oh, poor Odan. And so they go out to, because Odan is trying to get to Trill because he's got important information we don't really know, but the shuttlecraft that he's traveling in crashes on a planet. And so Beverly, Will, and Data go to, try and figure out if there's life signs and rescue. And then that's when we find Odan and both the host and the symbiont.
Yeah.
Symbiont. I can't remember which one. Symbiont. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a SG1 rewatch, so please forgive me. So yeah, both the symbiont and the host are dying, and so they remove the symbiont into the liquid, and we preserve Odan, and Deanna, with her empathic powers, gets in the liquid and begins to communicate with Odan. And she gets all those emotions, and that's sort of the end of the first issue.
So, this is a lot of setup, which you need in a miniseries, so we're getting the basics of the plot here. It's it's nice to see these characters again. It was good to see Nog, surprised and excited to see Nog again. I really liked the use of Deanna here. I thought her submerging herself in the artificial symbiont liquid that Beverly had created to communicate with Odan, the symbiont, without having to implant him. I thought that was a really nice touch. I'd forgotten that Bashir and Ezri were in a relationship, and that came after the series. Maybe you've watched the end. Was it season 7? I'd totally forgotten that. I haven't gotten to season 7 yet on my DS9 rewatch. Yep. I'm only on season 4. So that was nice to see. Then there's some cool action stuff, a nice firefight, and so Amy, I wanted to ask you, did you have any questions about the new characters that seemed very prominent that you didn't know? Anything you wanted to find out?
Yeah, so who was the captain with the gray hair?
So that's Commander Vaughn.
Vaughn. Who's that?
He is a new character that was created for the Deep Space Nine novel relaunch, and he is almost 100 years old. But he's only a commander. He did a lot of secret missions for Starfleet Intelligence back in the day, so they've woven him into the background of a lot of classic Star Trek stories in the novels, and he was first officer of Deep Space Nine under Kira at the beginning of the book relaunch series, and so that made him the captain of the Defiant as well. He does have go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say who's. Yep, never mind. Go.
Who's the blue guy with the red dreadlocks?
That is Lieutenant Shran. And he is one of the ops officers of Deep Space Nine. Again, O'Brien had moved on by that point, so I believe he might have worked in engineering. I don't remember exactly, but he became a very major character in the DS9 relaunch books as well. There was a whole Andorian plot in those novels, so we learned a lot about him in the books. So he's just an Andorian. I believe he's an ops officer. I think he wears gold underneath that parka that he's wearing in this book.
Yeah, one other thing that I liked that we learned was that there's this, I forget the character's name, the bad guy, the villain. What's his name?
Oh, he was in that DS9 episode too. Why can't I remember his name?
Oh, Verdad.
Right, Verdad.
Yeah. And so we do learn after Troy, she, after talking to or sensing Odan, she gives her report to the captain and how the Verdad feels that the symbionts have taken over the Trill, and so they are a purist is what they call them, extension group or terrorist group, and they want to rid the Trill world of those who are joined and the symbionts. And I found it very interesting when Troy was like, the reason he feels this way is because the joined Trills are in positions and they hold the highest positions. And the first thing they mentioned was in major universities, and then talked about how they're in the presidency. And I loved that just little, nod to how important education is. Like, if the highest positions are those who are teaching. And I had to write that down and point that out.
Oh, and I was mistaken about Shran. He was the science officer of DS9. He took over after Jadzia died because Esri came in as the counselor, right? And by the time of these books,
right,
she's actually left being a counselor and has gone on the command path. And by the time we get to the more modern books, she's actually a captain now. So,
okay, so that explains that one frame that was saying, well, I'm not a counselor. And I was like, well, yes, you are.
Yeah, she in the book, she
okay,
left being a counselor after the end of the series and became moved on to the command track.
Mm-hmm.
So one question that I have with this is we still don't really find out, like, how did the Trill become joined? Like, at what point in their history were they like, I think we can join together, right? Like, I'm just curious. Like, it's like, at what point are you like, I think this symbiont?
See, and I think that's Verdad's
me.
point, that it's like, we had Trills, and then, well, I guess, I don't know what are Trills before they're joined. Are they still? So his point is that, well, these symbionts came, they must be alien, and they joined with us. And then, so what is that initial? Were we a people before the symbionts, or, chicken and the egg question?
I wonder if that's a story that they felt maybe it would be better served to be told in a filmed thing as opposed to in a 4-issue comic book series. I don't know. But
yeah,
they do somewhere.
Well, then they need to tell it.
Check
we
memory
need more
beta.
stories.
I bet there's a story somewhere that talks about there's a book called The Lives of Dax that goes back through all of her, tells short stories of all of her hosts, and there might be something in that book. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read that.
But yeah, so that's something I've always wondered. And you're right, Amy. That's kind of the basis of it, of the purists saying that we've been taken over. We've been zombified almost by this alien species. Now, I mean, to blow up the pool that they live in, I don't know if that's the right answer to this, but I get what he's saying. So we'll move on to issue 2. If everyone's ready for that.
Tell me what happens.
The name of issue 2 is No Quarter. And, Kevin, do you want to talk about this, or shall I?
Sure. So, by the end of the first episode issue, Esri had been captured by Varad. So, we start with first Bashir, trying to keep Lenara alive, and then the Enterprise finally reaching Trill and teaming up with the Defiant to try to find where their missing people are. I do find it a little interesting. Trill is a member planet of the Federation. You would think that they would have more resources than just the 2 starships, and that they could probably get the whole Trill security force involved in this, but they don't, because we need to focus on our heroes.
Kevin.
Yeah,
I'm always confused about that with Federation worlds. Like, Like, I never understand why the Enterprise or whoever needs to come and go and save them. Like, isn't there another Federation ship near? Like, how can their Federation ship be 5 days away? Like,
you would think there would at least be a Starfleet recruiting office on Trill.
Something,
but
yes.
Whatever. Yep. Varad has Ezri captured and is planning to either take the symbiont out of her painfully or kill her quickly and get it done. So he's given her that choice. Meanwhile, Deanna is feeling some guilt over the hot and heavy memories she shared with Odan, and so she knows what Beverly saw and when she was being hot and heavy with Odan in Riker. So she's feeling a little confused and not quite sure about where her relationship stands with her fiancé at this point. She at one point says that to find herself a counselor. Then we cut to a scene with our engineering and science people, and Geordi and Data and Nog and Shran figure out how to track down where their people are by linking the computers of the Enterprise and the Defiant. And the Enterprise arrives at Trill, and they are to bring the pool that... the healing pool that Beverly had created, the artificial healing pool, and they're escorting it to the caves where the symbionts, what's the word I'm looking for? Where the symbionts emerge and heal themselves, and they're ambushed by Varad's people. A firefight ensues, and some of our people go down, some of Varad's people go down. We learn that basically Varad's people are all people who were rejected by the joining committee, and so they're all a little more pissed off than your average Trill person. And they get Odan to the actual pool, more firefights, more phaser battles. Beverly's firing phasers. Deanna's firing phasers. And we end with a countdown because there is a bomb that has been placed in the Trill healing pools. Does that pretty much cover it?
Yes.
That does.
Lots of phaser
It's
firing.
a very good wrap up
in this episode. And lots of scenes where people get news after the thing has already started. There's a scene where Picard sends a message to Beverly saying, "Hey, we've heard that they're planning an attack. Yes, we know. There's phasers going off all around us." It happens at the beginning too with when the Enterprise arrives too, Picard comes in saying, this is what's going on, and Vaughn is like, yes, we know, we're already here. That seems to happen a lot to Picard in this episode. It's interesting too that for a TNG story, it's not very Picard centric. He's not a very major player in this book at all.
No, not yeah. It's very centric around Troy.
It's a Troy and Crusher story.
I felt like absolutely, yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting seeing like Troy kind of being mean to Crusher a little. And because we never really see jealousy kind of creep in between Troy and Riker, and it's interesting to see it. I wonder if it's because like they know Beverly, like everyone else. It's like they're just a person of the week.
Well,
right.
I think if you ended up with a psychic image of your best friend out with your fiance, you'd be a little upset too.
Yeah, and I think with Troy and Riker, how they have this special relationship, and I totally get how Deanna is second guessing and wondering, about these emotions, that because of her relationship with Riker, it would make more sense that she's a little more angered or jealous at Beverly because they're just friends. Like Riker and Troy have this history of accepting other lovers in, we know their past. But with Beverly and Troy, they've never shared a love interest. And so I think those emotions are just natural. And I like that they bring them up because it seems natural, it seems realistic, and it seems something that would really happen.
I do like how they did a good job of keeping Picard out of the way. Because I think a lot of times when they're doing like Beverly centric stories, like it gets overshadowed a little because like when we see her and Picard together, we're always like, oh yeah, they're together. Even though they're not really, but our minds switch that way. So I think it was good that they kept him away to be able to tell that Odan story and be able to really close that up. Any other thoughts for issue 2?
No, issue 2 is just a good moving along of the plot. I like the cliffhanger. I like that every issue has ended with a cliffhanger. I thought that's pretty good. By this point, I recognize all the characters and I know who they are just from a glance, as opposed to the first issue. There are a couple of new characters introduced, specifically Varad's people, but they're not that important. Oh, and the young man that reminds Beverly of Jack, he sticks around for a while too, but I can't remember what his name is. I'm looking for it, but I don't know if he's ever named. He's just sort of there for the rest of the issue, as a bodyguard and extra phaser during the fight. He's an unjoined Trill.
Well, he's one of the security office, right? He's from the Trill security force.
Yes, that's true.
Which seems to have a lot of things really under control by the time.
Oh, I think I also missed the big point of the episode, which is that we learn Varad's plan isn't just to end the joinings, but to kill all the symbionts. That's a major point that I should have mentioned.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a virus to end the join Trills. And then there's also the plan to blow up the symbiont pool. Yeah. Yeah.
Symbionts.
So, moving on to the third issue. The third issue is called All Fall Down. And I'll talk about this one. It once again starts with it starts with them realizing that there's a bomb and things like that. But then it goes into Picard being the last to know once again. When Verdan is on the subspace channel with him and telling him what his plan is, that he's going to kill the symbionts and he's going to kill the joined Trill. And then another Picard is really used just to be the master of the obvious here. Then Picard's on the channel with the president of the Trill world, who authorizes him to use whatever he needs to do to eliminate the threat. Because we couldn't figure that one out without them expressly telling us that. When Verdan's trying to blow up half their population. But then it goes back to the doctors again. It goes back to Crusher and Bashir. They're talking over because they're trying to figure out a vaccine or an antidote for this situation. And that's when Crusher starts realizing that when they picked up Odan, and one of Odan's final words were, they thought the final words meant we have to find a cure. But Crusher's like, no, I think Odan was actually saying that Odan had the cure. Right. So they're like, let's figure out, how do we find this out? And Crusher agrees to be the hosts for the Odan symbiont, to find out this mystery. And that's kind of where we leave it off at in issue 3.
Yeah, I like when this picks up again. As we talked about, Troy has an important role, and she's interrogating one of Varad's person there with the bomb, and she's like, how do I turn this off? And she's like, I don't know. And she's like, you're lying, I can tell. And we all love when Troy does that, uses her, you know. And
Troy is a badass, is fun.
She is, yeah. So she figures out that it's a combination and does disarm the bomb.
Now, there's a whole scene with a riot in one of the Trill major cities because there's some people who are sympathetic, unjoined Trill, who are sympathetic to Varad, are saying they're being herded like cattle. Their solution is to just beam them all away. That seems a little bit Gestapo-ish to me.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, okay, Starfleet is the dictator here. And, you know, it was interesting because they were like, okay, so if you don't have the virus, you're going in the green shuttle. And if you do have the virus, then you're going in the red shuttle. And I was like, oh, we all know what happens to red shirts. And I just had a little chuckle.
And the fact that Picard authorizes them, like, we're going to sort these people in the transporter buffers, and as you beam them up, they're going to be sorted. I'm like, that just seems wrong.
Very, very wrong.
On so many levels.
Takes away all the choice. I mean, like, because it points out, like, this husband and wife, and it's like the wife is infected, but he isn't. Like, it should be his choice if he goes to the infected shuttlecraft. Like, but not forcibly, you know, and just all of the recent events, separating children from their parents and spouses and forcing this quarantine and restricting movement. And, you know, it's like, I couldn't believe what I was reading with now what we are experiencing in the past couple years here.
It feels like years. It's only been a few months, Amy.
Well, I was thinking with the separating of, children.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sort of all rolled in and just this past 4 years. Yeah. So not the best move, in my opinion, for Starfleet. I think they could have done something, but the virus was spreading so quickly. And stupid Varad was like going to every major city and purposefully infecting everyone. And he really becomes like this evil, you can't talk to him, there's no compromise. Like he truly, and it says in this issue, like, I am the villain.
Yeah, I mean, so it's almost a reminder to us that if we're, no matter what our message is, if we become very militant about it, the message gets lost. Right, because we were saying at the beginning, we don't know how the Trill became joint, right? Like, we don't know if this really was an alien. I mean, he might be right that aliens came and took over, but if you don't lay out your narrative in a way that people are going to be able to listen and get on board with, you're going to end up having that message lost.
I enjoyed the scene where Beverly gets Odan implanted in her. So
yes,
that's going to have to be weird for her, having like her former lover literally inside of her. That's interesting. And I liked the banter between Bashir and Crusher. Like she's sort of treating him like a little kid, you know, do it like this, do it like this. Like, I read your paper. I'm fine. I'm a super genius. Yep. I like it when characters who are, who should be peers work. We see them together. Like, I don't know if we'd ever seen when Bashir showed up on Next Gen. He only ever really
that's correct
encountered Data and Geordi, not Crusher. Mm-hmm. So it's good that we see the two of them working together here. Even in a very strange
that was absolutely fun to see. And once again, there's no foremost expert on the Trill world to help them with this or any, like, it's really interesting the way.
Well, she did say that all of the Trill doctors are infected, so And because she's a human, she's immune to the virus.
That is true.
So that's why she insisted that Odan be implanted into her. So I was thinking the same thing, and then I looked at it and went, okay, they've come up with a story reason. So at least they've explained why it has to be her.
Yeah, and I sort of like at the beginning, as you were saying, like there is a lot of action in this issue, and Beverly's firing, and she's like, why am I, being forced to fire phaser rifles so frequently? I'm the doctor, do no harm. And she's sort of debating it. She's like, it's only on stun. And then the next frame, there's this, phaser going by her, but they're not on stun. I thought that was
all right.
real
Let's
cute.
Move on to issue 4, United We Stand. Kevin, would you like to take us through this one?
Sure. So, it turns out that Varad had used some security codes that Jadzia had created years ago to upgrade the unmanned drones that are supposed to be protecting Trill. And now we're in a major space battle because they have turned their attentions on both the Enterprise and the Defiant. They can't just go in and shut them down because Varad has changed all the prefix codes. So we've got that to deal with. In the meantime, Odan, I guess we call her Beverly Odan, and Bashir are working on a way to save the joined Trills. And, of course, at the last minute, that's going to happen. But, of course, the facility they're using is under attack by the drones as well. Geordi gets to be a hero a little bit, and save a Trill woman from a collapsing building. More firefights occur.
And I really thought for sure he'd be doing the barrel roll.
I guess it's hard to draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big space battle. We got Deanna. Oh, Deanna ends up being a hero as well. Your girl Deanna she's really the star of this book. Her and Beverly. And I like that they give the spotlight to I think, the two characters on Next Gen who got the least amount of plots sent their way. Then basically firefight. And at the last minute, they come up with a plan and save everybody, and Odan gets implanted into, I believe, that young security guy that was helping them in the chambers, and we end with a passionate kiss between this young stud and our hero Dr. Beverly.
Yes. I like in this issue sort of how they point out the differences between the Enterprise and the Defiant, and how always with Deep Space Nine, like the Defiant is faster and more maneuverable and can go places. And they have that little, during the space battle, well, I hate to leave the Enterprise, but the Defiant can go more places. And I was like, typical DS9.
Yeah,
it really ties everything up at the end, which is awesome. And you're right. The doctors are the heroes at the end. Beverly kind of saves the day, and we get to really see a finale of it. We get to see closure for Beverly with Odan. We get to see. There's also a part in it where Troy kind of makes amends with Riker, where she's like, "I know, but I shouldn't be as upset as I am." And, when the wedding's back on again. So I'm sure Lexana was happy to hear about that. But yeah, it was a good ending to the episode, because there was a lot of action in the middle, but they really tied it up at the end.
Yeah, and we get Dax, Ezri, and Bashir back together again. And, I really like how it did give closure to just wrap things up, because I was worried that it wouldn't, but it ended things. Well,
nicely. These guys who wrote it they're pros. They know what they're doing, and they knew they had 4 issues to tell their story, and they paced it properly. And even though this issue, a lot of it is space battle, which looks pretty cool on the page, they were able to tell a personal story as well, and an emotional story. And I in the end, I'm coming down positive on this. I really liked it.
Yeah, so my final thoughts are like yours. Definitely good action, and drawn, those action sequences are just really good, especially in 3 and 4. But I like that they are taking these relationships, and all throughout the issues, in each issues, there's something that's coming up that sort of, I think any person would question, with Bashir questioning, well, how can I be in a relationship with someone who has had so many lives, and I want it to be just us, but Esri can't. I mean, she has all these people, within her as a trill. And then the complications of Beverly and Odan and Will and Troy, and just these questions that they talk about as a relationship, I absolutely loved. And I thought it was intertwined so well. I really also liked how, first issue, we were bouncing back and forth between Deep Space Nine and TNG. And then in issue 2, 3, 4, they are totally working together. And, Bashir is working with Crusher, and she, takes Odan. Oh, now I understand. And, they come up with a virus together. Like, it really is. This is my first crossover reading of a comics, I think, done so well. And it's like sort of at the end, then they go their separate ways because they've handled the crisis and saved the Trill world.
And another thing I really liked about it is
really enjoyed this series
because I like the series overall, is that the crossover became organic, right? They were there for 2 different reasons. It wasn't like they were like, oh, let's pick up these guys. But then once they got there, in true Federation fashion, there was no conflict between the ships, right? Like, they were all kind of on board with what they needed to do. They shared information. They were like, they realized that they were solving the same problem, and they kind of really just came together, which was good, because sometimes I feel like they create conflict in that form, which doesn't necessarily need to be there.
And it was nice to see characters that don't always get the limelight, get the spotlight in this series as well. This is a story about Beverly and Deanna and Esri and Bashir, and those aren't always your go-to characters on the show. So it was nice to see those particular characters get the spotlight. So often, next gen stories are about Picard or Data or Worf, and this is a story about Beverly.
And it's almost like anti the Picard, Geordi, and Worf, like, because Picard kind of fumbles his way through the whole thing, right? Like, it's like,
yeah. He's a minor character in this
very
story.
minimal.
And, and Data and Geordi are just go beam these people up.
Which is just fine.
Right.
Yeah, they're more of just the tasks where the actual story.
But I guess you can do that easier in comics, where you're not dealing with contracts that you have with actors and things, because I've never seen an actor's contract, but I'm sure there's language in there about how much screen time they're getting and lines and things like that. So I guess it's easier to then, when you're not on screen, to be able to just kind of let it flow the way you want to.
So if you can find this, I don't think this is an easy comic to find these days, but if you can find it, I would recommend it. I bet you can find it if you go diving through the bins at your local comic store, or when conventions happen again.
And listeners, if you're interested in the comics, there is a CD of all the comics of Star Trek up to 2008. And that's available. I found it on Amazon, but it has all the comics on there, which is really cool. And they're just kind of PDFs. So if you are interested in reading more, they're there.
Incoming transmission.
It's really exciting and refreshing to discuss comic book, TNG / DS9 comic book series with you, titled Star Trek Divided We Fall. However, we will also be talking about other great things. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. And hope you'll comment on our United Federation of Podcasts Facebook page or join the Federation Council Chambers. Just search UFP Earth on Facebook and like the page. You are welcome to start conversations with us or add any general Star Trek info you want to share with the group.
If you'd like to send us an email, you can email the network at contact@ufp.earth, and we might read your email on the show.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching United Federation of Podcasts. This way, you won't miss any of our fine shows like Franchise Fatigue, Always Hold On to Arrow, General Quarters, Mickey's Marvel, Infinite Diversities, and Trek Pod. So, Kevin, what section of the ship can you be found while out there in the universe?
Well, usually I'm just kicking back in 10 forward because I'm a lazy guy like that and just want to relax and socialize. But when I'm not there, you can find me in the Federation Council Chambers. I've been posting there quite a bit lately. I do several other podcasts off the network. One is called True North Nerds, which I do with some friends where we talk about general geeky things, sort of from the point of view of 4 friends who live in central Ontario. And I just started a new podcast called Stage Whispers, which is also quite local. It's about live theater in central Ontario. So give those a look for if either of those topics interest you at all. So Pierre, what deck will you be on when you're searching for life forms?
10 forward.
I don't think you can search for life forms on 10 forward, but okay.
But that is the best part. That is the best deck of the ship. I'm also on the Federation Council Chambers, and I am on the Twitters at Parlagreco21. And Amy, where can people find you when you are not telepathically talking to symbionts?
Well, when I'm not doing that, you can find me here on the network where I host All Good Things with my friend Patrick Devlin. And that is just a Star Trek Universe podcast where we get to talk about all things, and we do generally episode comparisons between the series. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and of course on Facebook on the Federation Council Chambers.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/UFPEarth. That's patreon.com/UFPEarth to get all the details. We have 4 different levels starting at just $1 a month and would appreciate any support you can give us. And we have lots of exclusive content coming to our patrons, so we hope that you will join.
We would like to recognize our executive producers, Brandon Shea Matala, Ken Tripp, Zach Moore, and Tony Robinson. And we would also like to thank Zach Tripp for our opening and closing music.
Thank you for beaming aboard, Galaxy Class. And until next time.
Turn a disadvantage into an advantage.
How do you know that? You're only a child. What are you, 50?
Energize.
Engage.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.